What's up, man? How are you?
What's happening?
Not much, dude. So, I'm curious to hear all about everything you've done, man, and where you are now, but like leading up to it, I mean, the successful restaurants, all the catering, all your chef stuff, dude. I really want to talk about all that. If you're okay with that.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. It was good to me for a long time, and
yeah,
it was a fun time, great adventures, and got to see a whole lot with it. It's kind of funny how I got into it. I'm a finance major in college at LSU, and plan on going into accounting or some sort, something to that career path. And I cooked in college. I needed extra money and ended up getting a job at an Italian restaurant, DiGiulio Brothers in Baton Rouge, which was phenomenal. And I enjoyed it. And kind of coming to graduation, and everyone's going their ways to grad school, or they're deciding their life's path, and that was somewhat overwhelming. It was like, oh, hold on. And finance and accounting and that stuff I did because I was good at math. Like, that was it. It wasn't a passion. It was just, you kind of find where you can excel at.
Yeah.
And on the third time I took biology, I realized med school wasn't going to be an option or anything in that. It just wasn't my deal. And so when it came to like kind of figuring out what the next step was, I wasn't ready for the real world. And I was dreadfully scared of sitting behind a desk crunching numbers for the rest of my life. I mean, I just couldn't figure out how that was going to work out. And I'd kind of heard of this culinary school thing. I had a chef at DiGiulio Brothers that had gone to a culinary school in, South Louisiana. And I said, well, heck, I can go to culinary school. This is fun. I mean, restaurant life's exciting. There's a bar with happy people. There's good food coming. You're playing. You're not sitting down. So then I started looking up what's the best culinary school. I'm kind of one of those, if you're going to do something, jump in and go for the best. And at the time, there were a handful of them. This was, this is late 90s. So it's a little different time. Food Network had just kind of come out. It was, people knew about this as a career, but it wasn't really as big as it's gotten over the years. And CIA up in New York and Johnson & Wales were two of the kind of top culinary schools. And so it was like, let's go visit. And CIA sits up kind of in the mountains, real cold, snow, ice, kind of miserable. I love cold weather, but if I can't go snow skiing, it doesn't seem to be a great thing to have to trudge around in day to day. And I went and visited Johnson & Wales in Charleston, South Carolina. And it just happened to be spring. And after touring the school, someone took me down to the beach, and it's like a big beach party with a bunch of college kids. Charleston at the time was 8 girls to every guy under 25. And I was like, well, I mean, if I'm going to prolong this education, this seems like the great spot to do. And it was really one of the best decisions I've ever made. And I'm not really saying it because of the culinary school. I think you can get what you want out of any good culinary school. But my career path got real lucky at that decision. And so when I started, I needed a job. I'd already graduated, so culinary school wasn't challenging because I was there, I was committed. I wanted to do it. And so I wasn't half-assing it like a incoming college student.
Yeah.
And I started asking around for, where can I work? And I picked up a few, part-time jobs in kitchens. And then, through the professors and some of the people at the school that I'd kind of befriended, they said, hey, talk to this guy. You need to go work at Charleston Grill. It's one of the top restaurants in the country. Real hard to get a job there, but, so-and-so over here has an in. And he set up an interview with me, and I got a job within probably within like 2 months of moving up there at the time, probably one of the top restaurants in the country. And it was awesome. It was great. I learned more every week there than I could have learned anywhere else.
What do they start you out at? Like,
well, I think I started off, the position I came in, I tell the story, I did not cross paths at the Charleston Grill, but I started on the grill at Charleston Grill.
Gotcha.
Which is where Tyler Florence had previously been working, who went on to whatever fame and TV shows he had cooking.
Yeah.
I only say that as just it's always been kind of a fun blurb in there. But I've spent most of my time prepping. You know, you had 2-man stations, and so you weren't running the grill, but you would prep to make sure you had all your mise en place and everything together for it. It was a extremely fine dining restaurant. It was every plate had multiple components. Everything had to be perfect. We were always on the watch out for, you know, reviewers. There were no Michelin stars in the United States at the time. We were a 5-star 5 diamond, which is kind of equivalent to a 1 or 2 Michelin star of today world. I know that's not exact, but that's kind of how the style of food it was. But it was such a great experience because we served about probably 140 people a day. We had 12 to 14 line cooks every shift. That's how intense it was. Gosh. And we had, you know, 2 to 3 sous chefs that would run prep. Everything was done from scratch. We had, I don't think anyone could get in trouble for me saying this, but we really had no food cost, which was, that causes problems later on in the career, you know, learning how to cook like that. But we were there to make a name for this hotel it was in.
Right.
They had 4 food service outlets. We were the premier. We were the one that they wanted the TV shows to come film at. They wanted everything to be perfect. And
so they weren't worried about a bottom line.
There was no real bottom line.
Yeah.
So if there was an ingredient that didn't make sense, we had it. If we needed tons of it, we had it. Yeah. It was, so we touched everything. The chef of the restaurant was a chef, Bob Wagner. He's the only American, this maybe has changed since, but at the time was the only American to ever own a Michelin rated restaurant in France. Okay. And he owned one in Normandy. And he was incredible. He was hands-on. He taught us all kinds of stuff. He had an incredible sous chef who still this day is a very close friend of mine. And it was just a great experience. And that's kind of where my career started. And that's where my eyes opened up to a whole different sense of cooking, how to cook. Culinary school was the gateway to get me to Charleston Grill. And I say that I graduated from Johnson Wales. I'm alumni. I'm a big supporter. My brother went there. I've got lots of good friends. But Charleston Grill is what really kind of groomed me into the philosophy of cooking.
Okay.
Within Charleston Grill, we were kind of a destination restaurant that we would bring touring chefs in. So for marketing purposes, a lot of these restaurants around the country, it was called touring Southern chefs. And so the chef from one restaurant would go cook a dinner for 2 nights at a place in Kentucky or New Orleans or New York or North Carolina, and then the other chefs would come to our restaurant. And every 2 weeks we're hosting famous chefs, from all over the country. And so that was an incredible thing, because as I worked my way up, every time a chef came in, I'd get to sit and work with them for 2 weeks. Well, there's no better way to get your foot in the door than to sit there and work, shoulder to shoulder with one of the top guys in the industry. And then when we would travel, a lot of times I'd get to travel with the chef, and we'd go to these other restaurants. Well, it makes it easy when you move on from there to knock on doors and say, hey, I was here, a few years ago, or I did this with you, that kind of thing. And so it really helped me kind of spin a web of contacts. And then because of our chef at the time, everyone that had worked there, and this is over a span of about 4 years that I worked there and kind of moved my way up, and you see people come and go, great friends. But once you kind of get through that rotation, most people, if they really wanted to excel, they would go to France under Chef Bob's guidance. And you would go work basically for free. They'd put you up, but you'd get a little stipend of food or whatnot. But it was literally just a learning experience for a year, and you'd go to 3 or 4 Michelin star restaurants and tour France. And so I was kind of coming to that point, and really kind of to a point I probably needed to get out and start using some of these degrees and education I've had for more than, bare minimum pay. And so I was planning on going to France under Bob, and then hoof and mouth disease kind of swiped through France. And it was kind of
what year was that?
God, this is probably 2002. 2000, 2001. I can't.
He'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, through it, two of the restaurants, I think 2 or 3 of the restaurants I was going to go to were not going to open up for the prime of their tourism season.
Gotcha.
And at the time, France was very seasonal in their tourism, and they're like, well, you're welcome to come over here. We'll put you up, but there's no work to do. And I grew up in a great family. I don't have any hard time stories, but my dad at this point was not about to help support me go tour France for a year
To do nothing.
and so I'm from Shreveport, and I had said I'd never come back to Shreveport. My girlfriend at the time, wife now, had gotten a very good job out of college back in Shreveport, and so I was had already committed to moving out of Charleston. They had already found a replacement for me at the restaurant, and so I moved back to Shreveport, not really knowing what the next destination was. When I got here, there's an old place, the Cambridge Club here in Shreveport, that was a kind of upper end private club over on Fairfield, and some of the owners I'm not even really sure where the connection came. I'd gone there growing up, asked me to come help their current chef kind of during a transition time. And so I was like, I'll do it for a few months, just to kind of see where my next step was. Not thinking it was going to be in Shreveport. I had no real desire. I just didn't think the food scene at the time really, it was just different. I'm not trying to say bad. I just felt like I needed to go. I still wanted to kind of go on a trajectory of seeing what the next
of course
step
That's
was.
a huge step back.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is what it is.
But at the same time, I saw friends, I saw family.
Right.
I was close to home. My girlfriend, I mean, everything, it started to make sense. And then I was just kind of torn, looking at different options. I had a very good connection with Commander's Palace in New Orleans. The chef at the time was he had cancer, ended up passing away during it, and the owners, we had a good relationship. And so I kind of looked at New Orleans, but it was a little too much for me. I wasn't ready for it. And then out of the blue, Phil Barbary here in Shreveport reached out and said he'd like to meet with me. And we're friends today. He decided that he wanted to open up a steakhouse, a Chicago-style steakhouse, and all he had done was the Mexican restaurants.
Yeah.
I, of course, knew of the Mexican restaurants, and he asked if I wanted to kind of head the thing up with him and be the chef for the grand opening. They had not started the project yet. I think they had found the location, but it had not started the project. And so I looked at it as an opportunity that I knew one day I wanted to own a restaurant. And I still was in the dreaming phase at that point. And I said, what a wonderful opportunity. I get to go in, guys knows what he's doing from a business and a restaurant thing, and let's build this thing out and be on the ground floor. So I spent a year with him before it opened, building it out. We traveled, we got to, I learned so much about the specific beef industry, the steak side of a steakhouse, which was not my favorite. It's not, still this day I enjoy a steakhouse, but it's not what I would prefer. If I get to pick where I'm going to eat at night in a new city, the steakhouse isn't the top choice.
Right.
But I learned the building of a restaurant. I learned the managing of it on a, kind of sometimes day to day, learn as you go. It was a school of hard knocks in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I got to watch how it was done from the perspective of an owner that was very experienced in that. And at the time, there were probably many things he did that I didn't agree with, that I look back now and go, probably should have listened, a little more and stuff like that at it. So, that was how I kind of got my.
And so y'all opened Superior Steakhouse?
We opened Superior Steakhouse.
What year was that? Sorry, I'm quizzing you on these years, man. I'm just trying to put it in perspective.
That was probably 2003.
Okay.
I think it was 2003.
Okay.
I could be off, a little bit on that. And so I stayed with him for a year after it opened. And at that point, really just kind of burned out of the whole process. It was, I got married in that time.
Yeah.
And, we were My wife works, I work. We never saw each other. It was just hard, and it is hard. And so through the steakhouse, one thing that experience I learned, and I'm going to back up just a little bit. Before I left Charleston, Chef Bob, I'd always go in and ask him questions about what should I do to be better, what can I do to be better. And one thing he always told me was, Jason, you can cook. That's not a problem. And he goes, but to make it in the restaurant business, he goes, you need to know all aspects of it. And so I'm not real good at baking and pastry. It's not my favorite. But we had a pastry chef at Charleston Grill, so I would come in on my days off and work with him just to have the knowledge, to learn, how that operates. I'd come in and I'd taste with the sommeliers on the front to learn about wine, because outside of Boone's Farm, I didn't know. I mean, I didn't grow up in a wine family or anything like that. But he did teach me quite a bit about the front of the house. And he told me that wine is a very important part of the type of food that I cook and the way in which I had been trained. And so when we opened the steakhouse, Phil and the partner, they had done the Mexican restaurants, which wine is not a part of. And so the wine was a new thing for them also. And so before they hired a sommelier for the steakhouse, I kind of took the lead to start helping with the wine program. And through it, I kind of fell in love with all the different vineyards, the education, the history, the different regions of wine, the taste, everything. I really enjoyed it. And I've always been someone that I can kind of deep dive into new paths to learn stuff. I like to, if there's a long road to learn, I'm in. That's kind of fun for me. And so when I got to my end of the steakhouse or kind of burnout, I didn't know what the next step was. But one thing I had realized, that there was not a retail place in Shreveport that you could get small boutique wines. Wines that not your
like one-offs.
One-offs, and not your grocery store.
Right, small batch
type stuff. And it's kind of hard to tell the story because times have changed now. You can get stuff everywhere.
Right.
And this is, you got to predate this. This is before the internet. The internet, like
trading retail,
all that kind of stuff. And so when I left, a buddy of mine decided to open a wine shop. I was like, I got all the connections. I've met all these people. I know where to get them, and we can sell them. And it was great. We opened a little wine shop, and we just started blowing and going, and with the intention of eventually getting someone in there to run it and moving on to the next project. It was just kind of I got to take some time from working 24/7.
Yeah.
And it was fast and furious. We did great with it. We expanded. And then at the time, a little backstory, my brother, who's a chef also, he had gone to Charleston after me and worked at Charleston Grill and Snobs and made some connections. And then he went to France, and he was cooking in South France while we had opened this wine shop. And my partner at the time in the wine shop just kept saying, man, I'd really like a little restaurant, a little bar, a little restaurant. I think he was a bartender in college, and the glory days were just trying to pull him back in. And I kept saying, no way, no way, no way. We had a newborn at home, all this stuff. I was like, there's no way. I'm out. Like I'll cater, I'll do this. I'm just not getting back in it. And unbeknownst to me, he kind of bamboozled me and talked to my brother, and my brother was coming back from France, and he's like, oh, we got it all set up. And so that's really how the restaurant side of my ownership started. And we found, someone reached out to us and let us know that Semolina's was going to be going out of business. It was right in my neighborhood that I grew up in. My first job ever in a restaurant was a bartender at Semolina's when I was, I think, 18, and so it was kind of full circle, and we did a remodel there, and we kind of put our heads together, and I said, look, if we're gonna do this, we're doing it right. I'm not getting in the restaurant business because it's the best way to make money. I'm going to get into it because I want to show what we can do and how much fun we can have with food. And I don't want it to be pretentious. I don't want it to be, over the top, but I want it to be quality stuff. And between my brother and I, we had connections all over the country with vendors and, fresh stuff. And we knew what we wanted to do. And that's what it kind of all started. We wanted to do, I hate using the word fine dining. We wanted to do very, very good food.
Do you think that's played out?
So fine dining is a term that it kind of gives me a little bit of nightmares. I just, with wine, with food, I grew up and was fortunate enough to be taught by people that wanted to share their knowledge. And a lot of times, especially back in the 80s and 90s, like fine wine and fine food was like this upper class, like pretentious thing.
Yeah.
And, I used to always say in the wine shops, pair wine with people. I don't give a shit what some book in 1960 tells you about Loire wines and what they need to go with. Because if you do that and you invite your friends over and they don't like Loire wines, I don't give a shit what you're eating with it. They're not going to be happy.
Yeah.
So like let's just have fun. I don't care. I mean, I tell a story. We had, back then was the oil and gas boom. I had some,
been like what, 05, 06, something like that.
06. I think 05, 06, somewhere right around there. But a guy that has been wildly successful. I won't mention his name, but he was just getting started in the service industry and had done well, made a lot of money. And he would always come in and, he'd always give me trouble as we met just as he was a customer and, just greeting him. And he said, I don't know what the hell half this stuff is, but it's good. Explain this. And one night he came in and he goes, man, I want the most expensive bottle of wine you got in here. And the server comes to me and asks me, I was like, well, I mean, we got a, Chateau de Kim, which is this dessert wine. And I don't know the price. It was $1,500 for a half bottle.
Yeah.
And I said, but that's not going to go with what he's going to order, So he goes back and tells him, and the guy goes, wait a minute, it's sweet, like dessert? He goes, that's perfect. I just want something really nice, and I don't like anything bitter. And I always use that as a joke because that's pair wine with people. He was happy. He had a big old ribeye, whatever.
Yeah, but it wasn't your normal like.
And this isn't a classic pairing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can play the game. I can sit there and if someone wants classic pairings, we can do it. But I don't feel like me walking around with a little Testavan and acting like, I'm better than you because I have more knowledge on wine. That doesn't do me or you good, especially in the business I'm in. I'm here to sell wine to anyone and everyone and food to anyone and everyone. I mean, that's what we're here to make money.
Yeah.
And I need everyone to be a customer. And so that was just kind of our mentality as a group. And so when we built Wine Country, we had been doing, I won't go off on tangents, but we had been in the wild meat business. We raised and sold axis and wild game in Texas to restaurants around the country. We'd host catering out there for people trying to raise money for offshore oil and take them on hunts. I've always been in the outdoor kind of industry, but through that, we'd sit around a campfire with people eating really drinking $1,000 bottle of wine and real fine, what they call fine dining meals with mud on our boots.
Yeah.
And, everyone's just here to have a good time. I don't care what brand shirt you're wearing. Who cares? Let's just enjoy food. And so that's what Wine Country's whole premise started is it's going to be more of a laid back approach to damn good food, good service, and creative and made from scratch. And I'm not sitting here telling you that when you come in and you have my tuna, it's the best tuna you'll ever have because you might not like the seasonings I put on it.
Yeah.
You might not like this, and I'm fine with that. But I will tell you that the tuna you're having is the best tuna that I could find to get to Shreveport, Louisiana on this Thursday night when you order it. And that's what we wanted to teach people and educate people to know where their food came from. When I came back to Shreveport, you just went and you ordered redfish. Well, have you caught a redfish in Cross Lake lately? No, you can't. No. And so you don't. And I eat plenty of redfish, but coming from Charleston, where we had fishmongers come to our back door with what they caught that day, there's a difference.
Oh, most definitely.
And so that's what we tried to do.
What's your favorite fish to cook?
Man,
if I said, hey, you have full.
I'm going to answer that with two two different
Okay.
answers.
Okay.
Favorite fish to cook is I'd probably say turbo,
Okay.
which is a large flounder, and it's just delicate and flaky, but still thick cut. That would be if money's no object and I wanted just a really great meal.
Got you.
My favorite fish to cook outside of that would be speckled trout or bass.
Really?
Both of them, and the reason being is because usually when I'm cooking speckled trout or bass, I'm usually with my boys fishing, whether it's friends or my sons, or we're having a good time and we had just caught the fish.
Yeah.
And that's the experience of it. And
You're
I
doing
think
breaking
breaking bread is so much more than just
How are you
meal.
cooking that bass or that speckled trout? You grilling it or you frying it or what?
Well, I mean, I made my boys as they grew up. Whenever we'd hunt or something, they had to learn how to cook whatever they killed or caught. And so we had a fish cook-off one day after bass fishing, and it was funny. My youngest son, he had a very French preparation with caramelized onions and beurre blanc and pan-seared, which I thought was awesome because he actually cared that his dad knew how to cook and would listen to him. My oldest son, who at the time loved pizza, mac and cheese like any kid growing up, he ended up doing a buffalo wing fried bass nuggets.
Okay.
And I got to say, the preparation side of it, we thought Will, my youngest one, was obviously going to take it away. But at the execution side of it, they both did great, and they were almost a tie.
Yeah.
So how do I like to prepare it? There's so many different ways.
Oh, we grew up fishing. My grandparents lived on Bistro. That's back before it got overran with salvia and stuff, and it was actually a pretty beautiful lake, in my opinion, back then. And we would go catch bass, and like in the middle of the week, I'd go over there or whatever, and we'd come in and fillet them up and fry them right then, man. Just like straight. The best way to. And I probably haven't eaten it like that in probably 20 years. That was the best thing.
We catch a lot of fish throughout the year, and we have a pond we have to cull a lot of bass out of, and we'll kind of freeze it and stock it up, and have a big fish fry. And I mean, I'm not a big fried food fan.
Me either, man.
But there's just something about fish fry.
Yeah, something about like doing it as a group of or family or whatever.
Oh yeah, and I think that's what I mean for me. Sometimes it gets lost on me when you go somewhere and you're just trying to get the nourishment of food. Like that's very simplistic. Like for me, the restaurant's way more than just the dish. It's the experience. It's the friends. It's who you're with. It's everything about it. And I enjoy it so much. I mean, we're coming up to my wife's favorite holiday, which is Thanksgiving. And I mean, I think she's, my brother called me today saying, "What am I supposed to bring?" And I said, "I'm not answering that question. You got to call my wife."
Oh, so y'all have there's high expectations set now too, huh? With you guys,
with the
potluck.
I think it's just it's a guaranteed day that family comes together.
Yeah.
And everyone's so busy and everyone goes so many different directions, and to be able to just kind of sit back and relax and know that you're going to have a good day, we look forward to it, and it's always fun. And now I got kids going every different direction and they're not always around, so it's going to it's fun. And I think that's what the culinary experience is really all about.
Yeah.
It's cherry on top when you can cook good food or you have exceptional food or unique experiences, but it's the people around you I think is the most important.
Yeah, man. It's there's something about I don't know, man. There's something about preparing that for someone and letting them seeing them enjoy it, but not just ooh, it tastes good, but like the whole element. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I think with Wine Country we were a little different for what Shreveport was used to when we came in. We came in with a wildly different experience than what the norm was, and we kind of broke some barriers. I mean, I still laugh, and friends of mine laugh today, that if you'd have asked me, what the most popular dish for the years of Wine Country would have been, and you told me it was going to be Brussels sprouts, collard greens, and duck, I would have laughed you out of the building. And I truly think the Brussels sprouts and the collard greens never left the menu through 16 years. So But it was the reason is we took stuff that was familiar and then used our experience and techniques to kind of elevate it to a different notch. And I think that's what I still today, even though I'm not doing it for a living, I mean, my passion for cooking's almost kind of revitalized after getting out of the restaurant business, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit, that I enjoy it even more. And it's fun now. I lost the fun in it as we grew because, I think we were kind of a classic example. It's like, well, if we're good at one, we need to have two, and if we're good at two, we need to have three, and we just kept growing. Mm-hmm. And I think we did some fun things. We did some neat things. Some of the catering was a huge part of our business. I have, until the first of this year, I have been licensed or insured and, licensed as a caterer since I was 22 years old. Even in Charleston, we had a side catering gig, and it kind of grew to, we were doing, parties of 3,000 people at the height of it. Yeah. And, one thing I can say, with the exception of meat pies and, chicken fingers for kids, even when we were doing hundreds of people, we were doing it as fresh cooked on site as possible.
I think that's the most important thing, man, because everyone's been to a wedding and had a horrible catering experience.
And look, I'm not knocking other guys and some of the stuff they're doing. It just wasn't what we did, and it wasn't. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be good at it. There's a lot of easier and shortcut ways in the food ways, and I've
made way more money too.
Oh, a ton
way more money.
And I remember the first time we did some emergency relief cooking with some friends down in South Louisiana, and the scrambled eggs in a bag. Yeah. And I looked at him like he was an alien. I was like, what in the world are you doing? And we had done 2 weeks before that, a breakfast for 300 people, mm-hmm. and we cracked and scrambled eggs. Yeah. We didn't even, and so it was just, people ask me about that kind of stuff, and I said, man, there's a lot of easier ways to do it than we did it. But we never even thought differently of it. Yeah. Everything was fresh.
There's a significant difference in that too, especially if you're doing stuff like that, like you're trying to get volume out and just feed everyone, and there's no criticism on it.
Oh yeah.
But if you're in an event, man, and you put the two together and you're like, look, I'm trying to give you, you're paying for this, yes, but like I'm trying to give you the best quality that I could do at scale, which is hard. It's not easy.
Oh, it's funny. The guys, and many of the guys that worked for me are friends, and many of them are the top guys in the market now, cooking incredible food. And off the record, we could laugh because there are a few shortcuts you eventually kind of learn, and it's like, why did we not do this a long time ago? The modern technology has helped some things that have really changed that industry. But the restaurant industry was good to me. Wine country grew and grew. The retail grew and continued to grow. We kind of slowed down when the internet, when people started ordering wine off the internet, really when internet sales just in general kind of started anywhere, we saw a sharp, not decline, but a slowdown in growth. And we never wanted to be a liquor store. That wasn't the business I wanted to be in. The wine business, it kind of fit in line with our concept of wine country. And we knew we weren't going to grow that much more.
I didn't realize it was started as a wine business. I always knew it was a restaurant. I had no idea.
We were a 1,000 square foot wine shop in Ashley Ridge that ended up growing to about maybe 2,200 square feet. I can't quite remember.
And then you moved over to?
We kept it.
Oh, okay.
We had two independent wine shops. We had Ashley Ridge and then one in front of 12 Oaks subdivision. And then we put another wine shop behind the restaurant in the Semolina, the Piermont Mall location.
Got you.
And that was kind of a frowned upon concept with the state. They didn't, the mixing of they didn't like the fact that you could come in and have a martini and then grab a bottle of wine and walk out.
Yeah.
With some state laws, and it was always funny. We had some shenanigans to kind of get around the laws. We actually had to use the bathrooms from the mall and have separate entrances. And for those that remember, the wine country had these metal gates in between the bottle shop that looked like something out of a old castle that you could just reach your hand through, but they actually locked, and that was the way we had 2 different addresses.
Gotcha.
So they weren't to everyone coming in. It looked like one location, but
there were 2 entities.
We actually had to build it as 2 different locations.
Yeah, the laws here are weird, man. It's still, slowly adjusting, but it's so archaic of how you do things.
Well, laws are up there and controlled by politicians.
Yeah, of course.
When you get all those involved, things aren't really done the smoothest and smartest way. So, and then I guess from there, the catering really took off. That was Southern Fork Catering. It was a full operation. It was massive. We then partnered up with some guys that owned Zocalo at the time, and so we took Zocalo in under our wing, which was a great little family restaurant. Never wild success for us. I was always happy with it. It was a fun, it was kind of the Cheers.
Yeah, that was a cool little spot, man.
It was a little off the beaten path. Location wasn't great, and then along the way we had a Southern Fork Bistro in Bossier it was the high security building down here behind the right by Bipsy.
Okay,
we were a food service operation for the building itself.
Got you.
And it was definitely not in our wheelhouse, and we just didn't know how to make super fast, super cheap food.
Yeah.
And I'm one that when I get to the mountain and realize I can't climb it, I'm gonna tell you. And we couldn't climb it. We couldn't figure that one out. We then went downtown. We did Parish Taco down there,
dude, which I loved.
Yeah, Parish Taco was fun.
I loved it, man.
Parish Taco was.
I forgot you had that, dude. I completely forgot that was your dude. Yeah.
We created Parish Taco.
The Korean taco.
The Korean.
Oh my god,
the bulgogi.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
oh my god.
So we created Parish. I say we. I kind of drew it up on the back of a napkin and started talking to a few guys in the kitchen. One evening after it was kind of pushed towards us, and I think within 24 hours the whole thing was created. It was kind of a dream for cooks that you're real serious all day long in wine country on what you have to do. What's something fun that you can put over here? And we wanted it to be tongue in cheek on tacos, because we weren't using any classic. We don't have any family that has taught us the old ways of this. That's why we spelled it. We're a bunch of guys from Louisiana that are too stupid to spell taco right. Parish, no one else in the country, has a parish. It's all counties. And I said, let's just have fun with this thing. And, the other thing is anything you cook at night, you can put in a tortilla the next day and it's going to be damn good.
Yeah.
And with that concept, we just kind of took off with it. And it was fun. It was fun being downtown. I was, I think I've been a promoter of our area for a long time. I was a big promoter for downtown and the growth of downtown. And I think that's what I was probably the driving force behind it. It was hard. Downtown's tough.
Yeah, man, it's a hard market.
It's a hard market. But, at that point, that this all kind of comes towards the latter of my career. I think I was getting older. I'd kind of lost the passion of cooking. We had 250 plus employees. It was I kind of full circled was spending more time behind a computer, which is what drove me away to go to culinary school. And so I remember, kind of telling my wife at some point that I was like, this ain't gonna last forever. I can't grow old doing this. And we really kind of got out of most everything right before COVID, with the exception of a little bit of, real estate and everything. But
great timing too, man. Oof.
Well, you have good luck and bad luck. I can't.
Yeah.
There was nothing other than luck involved in that.
Yeah.
And that was it. That's it. I cook a little bit. I'll go do some events with friends in the industry. I keep up, closely with it. But it was getting real hard then. Competition, cost of goods, labor, everything. There's so many things. There's so many different things in the restaurant business that can fold you at any given moment. And it is, there's an old picture of a waiter, and he's juggling like all these plates on sticks and his toes and whatever. And I just always remember, that's sometimes how it felt. We used to always joke. It was like we were the beautiful swan, out there in the middle of the pond, everyone looking, going, oh, look, they're doing great. Look how peaceful they got it. But, the feet are just hauling ass underneath, just trying to keep everything stable. So I can't even imagine. I mean, I talked to Blake Jackson today. He's opening up his other half of the restaurant tomorrow night. I don't know when this airs, but it'll be open by the time this goes out. Right. And he just made a comment to me like, man, after finally getting this full service restaurant open, I got so much more respect for you, Jason. I was like, man, it's so different now. Like I don't try to compare myself to the guys doing it now. The guys that are successful now are levels ahead, because I don't know how you do it. It's a tough gig.
Yeah, man, that's especially in that, you're such a niche market, especially in this area. But not only that, like which, thankfully the economy hopefully will start turning around. We'll see, but like you're such a weird market to where you have a limited amount, especially if you have a high ticketed item, and lower margins on those items. Like people don't think about that. They just think about, well, I got to pay $60, $70, $80 for this steak. Yeah, but you don't realize what we pay for it. You know what I'm saying? Like you as a restaurant owner, you're paying primo price for this product. It's not a Longhorn Steakhouse or a Texas Roadhouse Steakhouse steak,
Correct. I mean, we were the reverse of those. We weren't trying to find the cheapest product to serve and maximize our margins. Right. We were trying to justify the most expensive usually. Now, we didn't go after most expensive. We went after highest quality, but those correlate very quickly. But we would try to justify how can we do that. And it's hard. You have to have a unique product mix to be able to offset some of your low margin items. And it's tough. And we're in a market that people don't always completely understand. I remember through my whole career, people would go, man, I was down in Houston and I went to this restaurant and it did this. And I said, well, that's great. But you know what? Every single night they get a new wave of tourists or businessmen that come into that town, or business people, coming in. Like, I have to make sure the people I serve this Monday night come back next Monday night. Yeah. Because that's our market. Yeah. And that makes it hard. I mean, you just don't have as big of
it's completely different pull. But people compare it all the time. And it's so funny to me, too, we were talking about earlier, is like, I feel like every chef or sous starting out or whatever, working their way up, they have a dream of opening a restaurant. Like, I just feel like that's always on the napkin. Oh, yeah. But like, most people don't have the realization of what it takes to do so. But not only to have it and run it, but for it to last longer than a year. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's a challenge, and it's one of those businesses. And I have hindsight's easy to reflect on once you get it. And I didn't, I left college and just went full speed into the restaurant. I never looked back. I never thought differently. It was like, well, we're going to get this restaurant, we're going to make some money, we're going to get another restaurant, we're going to do this catering. I mean, that's all I thought. And then when I finally, it took me probably a year to get used to Saturdays not having to be working or worried about a catering, or the phone ringing on Sunday morning because we don't have this, or all that kind of stuff. And the realization is, there's a lot of, if it's about making money, there's a lot of easier ways and better routes than the restaurant business. But I don't say that with regrets. I mean, I've had incredible friendships, incredible experiences I've seen and done things that most people will never get to do through the culinary world. And still to this day, I have very close connections and friendships and, business ventures all based on those relationships that I wouldn't have gotten any other way. If I'd have gone to, work in an accounting firm, I'd be a bean counter, I'd be miserable,
Yeah.
So it's all relative. So
Yeah, there's something about like getting people together and a meal that everyone can talk about, not just like, hey, what are you getting tonight? Oh, I'm gonna get the whatever and I'm gonna get the soap, but everyone's just like, hey, just chef, bring us,
it's a blast.
bring it to us. And then you're just like, oh man, I really like this or like that, just there's something completely different than just looking at a menu and getting the same thing every week, or whatever.
I was in Nashville probably maybe a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, and we went to a Michelin star, I think it was Locust up there, and these guys are geniuses. They all came from Michelin backgrounds. They opened a restaurant and they were kind of burned out, so now they're only open for lunch. And at night, I think the bartenders and maybe a few managers serve tacos on the porch with really nice wine.
That's cool.
And it was awesome. We had, we went in on a Saturday, and if we had 12 courses, we had 14 courses. It was over the top, and it was a bunch of chef friends up there, and it was just incredible. I was like, bring it all. We want to try it all.
Yeah, man, that's the best part too. Like, I don't know. I feel like the more, everyone should experience more than what they think they like.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll try anything.
Yeah.
Once, or at least I'll attempt to try everything once. There's been a few things that, as they got close to my mouth, other senses guarded me against finishing that statement. But and there's things I like and there's things I don't like, and I'm the first one to tell you I can eat at a restaurant and it not be my favorite meal and know that it was done properly. It isn't what I prefer. And, and I think that's what everyone, I think everyone would be happier if they get comfortable with what they like, whether it's wine, beer, water, whatever, and not go by what society or marketing tells you you're supposed to like.
Yeah.
And that people get kind of caught up in that a little too much.
Yeah.
But food's fun. I mean, I'm going on 49 and still reading daily about food, learning new techniques, and enjoying it. I mean, it's a path that you can be on your whole lifetime.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting too. Like, you have all these influencers out there that are making phenomenal meals. But that's all well and good. But taking that and try to scale it and keep that quality more than one time, there's a whole nother art in that. Like, there's just a whole nother art. There's one person can make an amazing dish, but taking that and replicating it amazing 50 times, it's not, dude. It's
funny.
It's not for the faint of heart.
So, I've had this conversation already once today on something else, but some of the chefs over the years that worked for me, we would give them real control of the kitchen. I mean, there's certain items that you can't take off the menu. There's certain, there's a theme of the food we're trying to do. We're not changing the whole menu, but they're putting in the hours. They're back there grinding it. They got control of being creative, and I was so fortunate to have some of the most talented people, work with me, and it shows today as they're some of the most talented people in the market right now. But every maybe 12 weeks we would do menu changes, sometimes more, sometimes less. And the chefs, at the time, would come up with a new menu, and then we'd do a tasting. And the one thing I'd always say, because it was awesome, I mean, these guys are incredible, and the food that would come out is just executed perfectly. I said, this is awesome, but what are we going to do when there's 200 people coming through, special orders, dietary restrictions, and doing this all at one time on Friday night? The same with bartenders. I great bartenders work for me, love them to death, still see them around town, and we were very open to encouraging people to go outside of the box in making cocktails, making food. I mean, that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to be the place where people go, well, they'll do it. Wine Country will try it. But when the craft cocktail buzz really came around, it was, we had some very talented. We did molecular stuff. We did all kinds of crazy stuff all the times, and they would make these cocktails that were incredible. I said, well, that's great, but that took 14 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, I said, we're in Louisiana. People like to have multiple drinks, and nobody's waiting 14 minutes. So figure out how to batch it, and let's try to do it. And, you know, I think I hurt some feelings along the way, but, you know, ultimately in anything, you got to
well, that's just
you got to remember what you're in. You're in business to make money.
Well, those people aren't, they're creators. They're not running. You know, they're not running the business, and that's the big disconnect there. And I think there always is, because everyone has that dream, like I said, of opening their own bar, opening their own restaurant, but they don't understand that, like, a lot of that stuff that you're passionate about, you have to still have to scale that stuff, you know, and it's hard.
Passion can send you to broke real quick.
Yeah, man.
You know.
Yeah, you want the finest everything and the most expensive everything, but then what happens if they don't buy it?
Yeah, you know, I mean? Business is hard. That's why, I mean, you know, and I think that's the restaurant part of it, is you got to make hard decisions. And you know, I always kind of prioritized it, is that I got to look at what's the goal of everything we're doing here, and first and foremost is to have a successful business. You can take all the shiny stuff and all the accolades away. You got to make a business, and then in order to have a successful business, you got to take care of your employees to the best in what you can do. And sometimes that means you got to make decisions that more people might not agree with. But you know, I always took it as, if I'm making it with the best of intent of what our priorities are, I gotta do it. People don't always like that, but.
Yeah, but those people aren't the one making the decisions, and they don't have to stand behind the decision.
Exactly.
It's very easy to say, well, I don't like that decision, but you got to, like, also, I still have to stand behind that decision. You know what I mean? It's just,
I mean, whatever decision I make doesn't only affect you, it affects down here and over there and everything else, and that's not what they don't always see. I don't miss that part. I don't miss that part at all.
I would imagine not, man. No, I can relate to that stuff with it. Well, the one thing I do want to talk about too is hogs, dude. Hogs for Cause, because I know you did it.
Yeah.
And we're running into our third year doing it, and I absolutely love it. It's a way to get everybody I know who likes, from being chefs to actual pit masters, and kind of collaborating on something that I think is amazing. That's very hard to do any other time, but that one event we can always come together and do it. You know.
Well, so hogs came. You know, like I've always. I'll tell you. It kind of all started year 2000.
Gosh.
I was in, not hogs, but where I kind of, like my path towards hogs. I think I was just out of culinary school, something right around there, but it was, you know, New Year's Eve, and we think the world's going to end, you know.
Y2K,
and so we were down on Lake Bistro with a bunch of friends, and we decided to cook. They were like, well, you went to culinary school, you're cooking a whole hog. And I said, all right, let's do it. We got a whole hog. Some friend of ours knew a guy that had a pit big enough to put a hog in. And we marinated it. We did everything, got it all going. And, of course, we were young and having a good time at the lake and, you know, trying to stay up, kick it, but we all fall asleep, and it's cooking overnight. And I'll never forget, we had planned for everything except for the sprinkler systems. And the sprinkler systems went out and put our fire out, and we ended up having to cook the pig almost a second time. It was a horrible thing. But from that process, we ended up cooking pigs all the time. Like we do it for caterings. I mean, you know, local Bill Joyce used to have a Halloween party we do every year, and we'd parade the pig in a coffin through the thing. And we cooked. It just kind of started a thing, and it wasn't something we did in the restaurant. It was something we'd always do for fun or friends. And then I won't mention, but a friend here in Shreveport who was, hobby chef kind of moving up, and he's a hell of a cook. Came in one day. He was like, "Man, I just signed up for this is 2012, the second year of Hogs."
Okay.
He goes, "Man, I just signed up for this Hogs for the Cause down in New Orleans, man. It's awesome. It only costs you $100 to sign up, and it's a hell of a good time." And I said, "All right, I'm in." So we signed up, and the only truth in what he told me was that it was called Hogs for the Cause, and it was in New Orleans. And that's where the rabbit hole started for us. And we had a blast with it. We had so we were Bohemian Pork. It became just this kind of branding of, you know, everything we do day to day in our work life, we're going to let loose and go have fun and do something different. And it was for a good cause. I mean, raising money, the pediatric cancer, you know, Renee and Becker they had a vision, and, you know, I could ask you questions because you've been more recently than I. We were there from 2012 to 16 or 17. We were 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
And so the first year we were there, it was the second year. You know, I mean, it was small barbecue pit,
Yeah.
you know, picnic tables and lawn chairs. And fast forward to our last year there, it was Prevost buses with matching barbecue pits,
Yeah.
you know, behind us, and 2-story
Yeah.
operations. I mean, we had palm trees. We drove down there. We had, I mean, it was over the top. But it's an incredible experience. I think we had a pretty rough go the last year. My brand new Suburban got wrecked by the valet, or not by the valet. The valet was driving it and got T-boned by someone in New Orleans.
Damn.
And it was everything that could kind of go wrong with it. And we had gotten to where we were putting up staff, and we had a bus that was, you know, it was expensive. And,
Yeah.
you know, my wife was like, well, for the money you spend, you could just write a check to the charity. And
It'd be a lot easier.
I was like, yeah, the voice of reason, I appreciate.
Yeah.
But it was fun. We the first year we were there, we were fan favorite, which I would say is, if I'm shooting for something, that's what we wanted for. But we have a lot of great experiences down there. Met a lot of great people. I think we left our mark down there. We had a pretty loaded team with a lot of friends and staff from here, but we kind of handpicked a bunch of chefs from down there to join our team, and it was awesome. It's a great thing.
Yeah,
and
man.
the music, I mean, everything about it. And I mean, I saw the other day the amount of money that they have raised over, what is it, 14 years?
Yeah.
is something.
Yeah, it was bumping $5 million last year just in that one weekend.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I don't even want to say a number, but it's
It's astronomical.
It's just crazy what they've done.
It's got to be hundreds of millions at this point.
You know, it really started off with a few guys with Weber Grills at City Park, just cooking
crazy.
to raise
It's
a little
crazy to
money
think
for,
about, man.
you know, a friend of theirs who lost a child to pediatric brain cancer. And I mean, I just, you know, I can't say enough about those guys. And you know, through it we've done barbecue since. You know, we had a brand, Bohemian Pork, that was in, you know, stores around here locally for up until last year. The health department changed some stuff, and we just haven't been able to fix it. All started really from our toe dipping into Hogs for the Cause. So I'm jealous of you guys some.
Well, come down this year,
I
dude.
might need to come down, but
Come
it
down,
is
dude. We'd love to have you.
It is a fast and furious long
We
weekend.
still have the little shitty tent set up. We do get I get the tent and rent it, but we don't have a major scale operation yet. But we're slowly inching it up every year, dude. I mean, we've just about got break even getting donations, you know.
Yeah.
Up until this past year. Now it's like, hopefully we can get a good raise this year. But that's the biggest thing, man, is that people don't realize you gotta, like, there's tens of thousands of people to show up to eat.
Oh yeah.
And you got to come up with all that product. We're not even talking about raising money yet. We're talking about coming up with all that product and then getting down there and then getting everyone down there and getting all the utilities there. And you don't have power, and you got to bring a generator. You don't have running water. You know, you have to figure all that stuff out, which is great, because that's, in barbecue, that's how I've learned anyway. So I'm used to that. But scaling it up and then making, like, you know, partner with chef friends and making like all these amazing dishes that aren't just barbecue. You know what I mean? You gotta set yourself apart. There's I mean, the amount of, I go like fanboy every year because I get to meet different pit masters and different chefs, and I'm just
the
like, dude, this shit's so cool.
Thick. I mean, you know, I mentioned the Prevost bus, and he was, and I don't quote me, I can't, but I think the story is this was a large business owner who just loves barbecue, and he got a team and wanted to donate money, donated a ton of money, brought his bus down and hired the grand champion of like the Kansas City circuit to be his pit master, just to come down there and run the team.
Yeah.
You know, so you're not competing with your buddies around the block.
That's what people don't understand.
It's the best of the best.
And you have to be invited. Like, you can't just... that's the hardest thing. I'm just trying to get the door first. Now we're there. It's like, dude, just please let us keep coming. You know what I mean?
I think really what kind of made me back down off of it was we got to be real busy in a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And I was spending too much time trying to keep that momentum going. And we had such growth, and we were raising a ton of money. We were spending a lot of money, but it was a hell of a weekend. And it just, sometimes you got to take a step back and go back to where your priorities need to be. Yeah. And that's kind of why we
that's why I've looked on like competition barbecue. Like, I don't do any more ever except like that one.
Yeah.
If we went one year and qualified for the big leagues and went to do one, but like really it's just like we just plan everything around doing that one that year. And then if I can just be a part of putting these other small ones together or judging them or whatever, then I'm okay with it. I still get the bug, like the bug's there, but I can feed it with that stuff being involved, but not having to actually compete, and then just using all that energy to go knock out that one weekend, man.
And it's crazy because I think Hogs is like, it's so much more than a barbecue competition.
Oh man, it's crazy.
It's like it's evolved into.
It's like a music festival. It's like going to Austin to a music festival.
And all of a sudden you kind of turn around and you're like, oh by the way, we do have a pig on the. Yeah, you kind of forget that that's the main thing on it. But those guys have done a great job.
What was your choice of breed because I do a lot of pigs, but what was your choice, like, if you're going to breed it? I mean, cook a hog, what's your go-to?
Well, it depends on who if it's for like something like that.
Oh, no. Well, let's say
Red Wattle.
Red Wattle? So you were doing Red Wattles at Hogs?
Yeah.
So I didn't have a good experience with Red Wattle this past year.
There's some Red Wattle mixes that, some of the problems with Red Wattle, the meat's darker.
The presentation was amazing on the outside, but then once you cut it open, it has
a little more fat.
It doesn't look as well. My fat didn't render like a Berkshire did,
Correct. There's a blend. I think it's a Berkshire Wattle mix that some people are doing now. A lot's changed in that. I mean, we back then.
Oh yeah, there's so many different breeds now.
We've since played with Mangalitsa. We've played with all the different ones, and I mean, it's a different game. But Red Wattle was what we were using, I think, for the most part back then.
Well, they're beautiful in presentation. I mean, they're just phenomenal. But I just and I got we sourced it here local. Mahaffey's great product. It's nothing against the product. I just didn't. I prepped it the same as we did the year before, and we didn't have the same result.
So they let you bring your own.
Now, yeah.
Okay.
Before you couldn't?
Yeah, before you had to buy your pig, or maybe you didn't have to. Maybe they offered. I can't really remember. But like we would go there, and they had a good selection. They had a great, a farm. They were getting them from.
I think it's just so big now. It's just like you do the same setup, all your pork dishes, and you bring all your own product, and then they inspect it. But the first year we took like what 12th and whole hog, and then we took ninth and whole hog our first year.
That's phenomenal.
And so, that ruined me. I wish that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Because this past year we were like 20 something, or even maybe 30. But out of 90, that's still not horrible. But like I wasn't satisfied. But Josh fucking took 5th in sauce the first year, like 5th in sauce. They call sauce. Yeah. He's like smoking a cigarette or going to take a piss. They call sauce, and he's not even there. I'm like, dude, holy shit, we just got 5th in sauce, and that's the prelims, and then you get to the main thing, and they said 9th and hog. And like we're losing our shit. Of course, you don't go up to the stage for 9th, but we're still losing our shit, because it's like, dude, we just got top 10 out of 100 barbecue teams with renowned pit masters from all over the world. Now we do cook our hog different than most of them. We do like we built this pit that we use we used the pit the first year, and then we have since put it on a trailer where we can use it mobile. But we cook over coals, just like a cinder block pit, but it's a custom aluminum pit that we've built. So the way we do it is different. A lot of those guys just throw in old hickory, or something, or big pit, and they do great, And a lot of those guys are cooking 150-pound hogs. We're cooking like an 80-pounder.
Yeah.
But I mean, next year we'll do. I don't know what we're gonna do. We'll change the pig maybe or something. I don't know, or need a little bit longer cook time. I don't know what happened.
When we won fan favorite, it was funny because we really didn't know what we were getting into. I mean, we were a bunch of out-of-towners coming into this at the time, fairly local. I mean, there were some big teams, probably not too many big teams, but I mean, local. I mean, New Orleans is a restaurant city. Yeah. But we had a blast. I mean, we were on our little island cooking, and we thought we were the best, but we didn't have expectations. And then they did the award ceremony, and I think fan favorite was like the last to call out, and we didn't even realize there was a fan favorite, and we cheered for everyone, and I think we had all had way too much to imbibe in through the cooking process. We were pretty marinated ourselves, and all of a sudden they called up Bohemian Pork, and we were just cheering, and I think someone was like, "That's us." And then they're like, "Y'all got to come on stage." We're like, "We get to come up there?" I mean, it was just it was awesome. It was a cool experience, but kind of the same thing. Like, that was our first year. Yeah. And I was like, they tricked us, because then all of a sudden I was in.
They had me hooked. They got me hooked. I'm trying to get top 5 now. Shit.
It's a great event, and I love it. I mean, we still do a ton of open fire cooking. I've built multiple open fire, setups, because I just love cooking. And I mean, if I had, my specialization would be wild game and open fire cooking, and that it was really through my whole career. So I love it. I mean, it's fun.
Yeah, man, it's so industrialized now because there's so many people doing it, which is great.
Yeah.
But there's so many different apparatuses out there. You can learn how to do it in your backyard. It's cool, but like, there's still so much time and effort. I mean, I still learn something new every single time I light one of my pits up. And it's like, humidity, is the wood right perfect? Like, where's the temperature at? Is this going to throw my cook off a whole hour? Like, there's all these variants that people don't realize. There's just so much that goes into it, and that's way before we even get to a finished product. That's 12 hours before we have a finished product.
I mean, I think open fire cooking, anything is so humbling. Like, I mean, I tell people, there's nowadays everyone you can get on YouTube, and you can watch YouTube for a month, and people start saying they're a chef. They worked at Applebee's for a week, and now they watch YouTube and they're a chef, and it's different. I mean, when we learned how to cook with our, touch, smell, and our ears, and on open fire, like,
you have to use
every day is different. Yeah. Every fire is different. Yeah. Every breeze is different depending on how you do it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what intrigues me so much on it, is because of that. Like, you've got to be there and be part of it. Now, as I get older and I don't want to stay up all night long, right, the smaller pig is a little better option. Because those long cook. I mean, we cooked a 1,200 pound bison once that was a 24-hour cook, and I don't think I have that.
24 hours for 1,200 pound bison? That's pretty quick, man. Were y'all rolling hot?
It was pretty hot back then. We had it butterflied open. Okay. We had it splayed open on a big rotating outdoor kind of pit deal.
Yeah, that's badass.
Built. So, but yeah, I'm getting too old for that. I can't stay up all night.
I'm getting there already, dude. I've probably pulled 60 or 70 all-nighters this year. I mean, and we're not even in full-fledged catering season yet, dude. But like, I don't know, man. I've noticed something about myself here recently, is my smell gauge, like, for wood, but not only the type of wood, like, I can tell if there's a mixed. I've done this so much. I'm not gonna say good, because it's not the case. It's just repetition. I've done this so much that, like, I can catch a whiff of if some oak got in that batch of pecan or something that wasn't planned, or that there's some green wood in there. Oh, yeah. Like, when you do it so much, you're like, that's not consistent. Something's off. There was some green wood in there.
What's your preference in wood?
I use pecan, man. I use pecan, one, because I think it's cool to.
It's local.
It's local. Yeah, I think it's cool for our region, because it signifies kind of, this is where we're from, and it's prevalent here, and it's common. I know those craft guys love like white oak, post oak, white oak. They love any type of oak, and you have those guys that are way over there in like west side, like a lot of mesquite, heavy hickory. But I would say, if I have any choice, I'm always going to go pecan first. I'm used to it. It does burn hotter sometimes, and it does get dirtier sometimes. Like, it'll get your grill dirtier. Cook wise, I've had great success with it, but I'll implement some fruit wood in there too.
If you ever get peach wood's awesome.
Oh yeah, I love peach, but it's like, hard to get. You can't get it all the time. Yeah. So it's like, we'll save peach. We'll use it on the hogs. Like, anytime we're cooking those, we'll have cherry and peach, and we'll mix that.
Cherry's great, but cherry's not regional.
Dude, it's hard. Yeah,
and it's so hard to get.
It's hard to come by. So like, mixing that in with pecan is what I typically do. Now if somebody gives me some oak and it's some good, good post oak or something, I'll run it. But man, I don't know. I've just gotten used to the pecan. I like what it does with what I do, and I'm not a huge. I'm not doing a lot of ribs.
I'm not a big mesquite fan. Like I can do mesquite. Like if we're doing, if you want to do like a fajitas or something like that, on an open fire, that flavor's good. But in barbecue and long cooks, mesquite becomes medicinal and a little too much for me.
It just overtakes the whole flavor. Like that's why
some people in West Texas really pissed that I just said that. If
they love it, and that's fine, bro. But they can't form saliva. Like I'm not more trusting their taste buds. Dude, when I went and worked over there for like the first week, there's black shit coming out of my eyes, nose, and throat for like a solid week. I was like, how do people live here? So I don't trust their palate. I love them for who they are, but holy shit, dude, no, I can't run mesquite like that.
And we don't have mesquite really around here, so no. But kind of classic on the barbecue. And I think barbecue's a fun medium because it's not controversial, but it's another one of those paths. It's a long road of learning. Like I mean, I cut my teeth in South Carolina, which is mustard Q. Friends got to know Sam Jones in North Carolina with Starlight and whole hog cooking. You go to Memphis and dry. There's just so many different types of cooking to take from, and then you get into international, South American. I mean, if there's someone that can cook meat, the Argentinians and Chileans and all that, and then you go over Korean, you take any Asian influence into something that changes the whole game to something there. So it's so much fun and so many different. Yeah, man, barbecue.
It's something that it's a great way to blend all the regions. Like it is cool because there's some people that love the Carolina barbecue that's super heavy in vinegar, and there's people that love like the Memphis, style or whatever it is, like the sweet, and then there's people that just argue craft, and it's hardly any sauce, but they all have their place. I like every single one of them. I just like them. I like them in the right place at the right time, paired with the right things,
Yeah, and I think it's fun to have so much variety, and it's sometimes fun to watch them argue back and forth on who's better.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
That's in anything when you that pride people take in it. But that's fun, so that's kind of the culinary journey. It's through it has been fun. There's a lot of it I miss, but I don't ever want to go back to it. And I say that in a very loving of the past way. I mean, I had so much fun along the way, but I enjoy what I do now. I enjoy having more flexibility in time, and I enjoy not spending a lot of my energy on management, which is I manage me, which can be a full-time job. So
Well, what have you before we wrap up here, what have you gotten into now? What are you doing?
So I've kind of moved into the real estate world, commercial real estate. We've kind of gone from conventional commercial, development, and some industrial, and a lot of recreational and land. I mean, my passion's been the outdoors my whole life, hunting and fishing, to a fault, my wife would tell you. Probably some of my partners along the way have said to a fault. But so we do a lot in the land world. I get to spend a lot of time in the woods. We're coming into hunting season, so it's kind of my favorite time, and we'll spend a lot of time on the road and chasing the culinary delight that Mother Nature has given us. And it's fun. And I like I've always been, I had a business background, so the real estate world is fun. There's a lot of different moving parts. You still get to work with people on a regular basis, but you don't have to manage a lot of moving parts, which I like a whole lot.
Yeah. So. And you get to be in that environment to where, like, it's something, like, real estate's cool, but, like, being able to do the land management part of it, like the hunting leases and
it's really a blast, and it gives me a little bit of all of it. I still play in the culinary. We're working on a spice company right now, some spice blends I've created over the years, playing around with possibly bringing back the Bohemian Pork brand, and then working on a cookbook. So
dude, I need that recipe for those Korean tacos, dude. Oh my god.
We can make that happen.
Dude, those things I remember like you bridged the gap there for me for like being a closed-minded redneck palate. I think was trying those like tacos. This is the first thing. I never had like street tacos or anything like. So then trying what y'all had put together there, I was like in the oil field. So we just we ate meat and potatoes, and we were always on the road wherever. Like stop in and get some tacos if we're in West Texas or something. But it's not like nothing that was like not traditional. You know, and then I had those. I was just like, holy shit. Y'all had like Taco Tuesdays or something.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, we would go there, and I would eat so much that I would literally be sick.
Well, you know, I mean, the Asian influence of food is, you know, my training background was French classical, which I think is an incredible base for anyone. And I think more people need to learn that from a technique standpoint. But, you know, throughout my career, I was always trying to learn new stuff. And I basically put myself back through, I did a Japanese Culinary Institute later on in my career, and went through that whole program. And bringing Asian mindset from a culinary standpoint, flavors and techniques into what we in the Western world are used to is absolutely amazing. Yeah. It's a game changer. And for me, it just kind of kicked in a new passion. And so Parish Taco was fun because we didn't really have any boundaries.
Yeah.
I mean, really our only rule was don't make something classical.
Yeah.
Like don't make it.
There's no regular anything.
Like I don't want anything, you know, the only thing conventional in this taco is the word taco.
Yeah.
Like outside of that, change it up.
Yeah.
You know, and that was fun. You know, the Nashville hot was always
that was great, dude. It was great. That was that one had, dude, you had so many that were great there. You had did that one have the slaw on it? Or was the other one?
No, the Nashville hot was tortilla cheese pickles and Nashville chicken.
There was another one with a slaw that was amazing. A pork.
We had a pork. That was kind of like a Hawaiian style. Pulled pork. We actually did conventional smoked pork, and then we'd mix in a little bit of this like a pineapple relish, and then had a little bit of an Asian slaw on top of it. Yeah. Fun. That was
all
fun
that stuff. I forgot about those. Yeah, that shit was amazing.
It was a good time. What else you got?
Man, that's it, dude. I want to keep going. We're gonna have to wrap this thing up. All right. Any last thoughts or anything before we shut it down?
No, I appreciate you inviting me on here.
I could talk about food for probably longer than people want to hear. You know what I mean? So.
Well, I mean, you're in a good market for food. There's lots of good food in this town. I mean, I think, you know, I've been blown away by what our options are, you know, compared to 20 years ago. It's amazing what people are doing here in Shreveport. I don't know how they're doing it, but I'm happy they're doing it, and I'm happy to support them when I can. So
yeah, heck yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, bro. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was awesome.
All right, that's a wrap.
All right.